there are certain persons who can, that is, not precisely are able to, but have a perfect right to commit breaches of morality and crimes. The law is not for them. All men are divided into ordinary and extraordinary. Ordinary men have to live in submission, have no right to transgress the law because, don't you see, they are ordinary. But extraordinary men have a right to commit any crime and to transgress the law in any way, just because they are extraordinary. An extraordinary man has the right. That is, not an official right, but an inner right to decide in his own conscience, to overstep certain obstacles, and only in case it is essential for the practical fulfillment of his idea, sometimes, perhaps, of benefit to the whole of humanity. If the discoveries of Kepler and Newton could not have been made known except by sacrificing the lives of one, a dozen, 100 or more men, Newton would have had the right, would indeed have been in duty bound, to eliminate the dozen or the 100 men for the sake of making his discoveries known to the whole of humanity. But it does not follow from that Newton had a right to murder people right and left and to steal every day in the market. Legislators and leaders of men such as Lycurgus, Solon, Mahomet, Napoleon, and so on were all, without exception, criminals. From the very fact that, making a new law, they transgressed the ancient one, handed down from their ancestors and held sacred by the people. And they didn't stop short at bloodshed either, if that bloodshed, often of innocent persons fighting bravely in defense of ancient law, were of use to their cause. It's remarkable, in fact, that the majority, indeed, of these benefactors and leaders of humanity were guilty of terrible carnage. But all great men, or even men a little out of the common, that is to say, capable of giving some new word, must, from their very nature, be criminals. More or less, of course. Otherwise, it's hard for them to get out of the common rut. And to remain in the common rut is what they can't submit to, from their very nature again. And to my mind, they ought not, indeed, to submit to it. Men are, in general, divided by a law of nature into two categories. Inferior, ordinary, that is, so to say, material that serves only to reproduce its kind, and men who have the gift or the talent to utter a new word. There are, of course, innumerable subdivisions, but the distinguishing features of both categories are fairly well marked. The first category, generally speaking, are men conservative in temperament and law-abiding. They live under control and love to be controlled. To my thinking, it is their duty to be controlled, because that's their vocation, and there is nothing humiliating in it for them. The second category, all transgress the law. They are destroyers, or disposed to destruction according to their capacities. The crimes of these men are, of course, relative and varied. For the most part, they seek in very varied ways the destruction of the present for the sake of the better. But if such a one is forced, for the sake of his idea, to step over a corpse, or wade through blood, he can find within himself, in his conscience, a sanction for wading through blood. That depends on the idea and its dimensions. Note that. There's no need for much anxiety, however. The masses will scarcely ever admit this right. They punish them or hang them, more or less, and in doing so fulfill quite justly their conservative vocation. But the same masses set these criminals on a pedestal in the next generation, and worship them, more or less. The first category is always the man of the present. The second, the man of the future. The first, preserve the world and people it. The second, move the world and lead it to its goal